Good morning, everybody. My name is Christiaan van der Hoeven. Welcome. I work for WWF Netherlands since 15 years. I'm a biologist. I studied animal behavior and did a PhD in wildlife management, mostly in Africa, West and Central Africa, on elephants and monkeys. I've worked for about 6-7 years for the IUCN, that's the International Union for Conservation of Nature, for a small grants program where we supported small NGOs in Southeast Asia that are starting or are developing and needed some more support and funding. I'm really happy to be here because normally I speak to either our constituency, our donors, media, volunteers, my own people from conservation, and it's really a good challenge that I can talk to people that are actually really in the middle of society and in between politics and between the society and nature. So for me, you are a very important audience, which I normally don't say very often. But I hope that I can help you and give you some ideas what is happening and how to deal with human-wildlife conflict. How actually the main issue is that we want to change from human-wildlife conflict to coexistence. And from WWF, we have dealt with this problem for quite some time now. Myself, I work now for 15 years for WWF. I work on the giant panda program in China. There's not that much conflict there, but most of my work is in Southern Africa. So Sub-Saharan and Southern Africa, where I manage all the projects and portfolio that we have there. And what we have seen in the past years is that because, of course, growing human population, there's a shrinkage of habitat for wildlife. There is more need for space for agriculture, for living, for infrastructure development. But at the same time, we are also quite successful in our conservation efforts. So we see, for example, stable or even growing elephant populations in Southern Africa. Well, if you have an increasing human population and you have an increasing elephant population and you get less space, then that must lead to conflict because people get in conflict with each other. They need to share the same space. They are both looking for the same food, both looking for water, drink, and peace. So what we see in all our efforts in conservation is that this human-wildlife conflict is increasing tremendously. And we cannot ignore it anymore, so we are trying to get more attention to it internationally on policy agendas, but also technically in our work on the ground. And therefore it's very important that we can talk with you on the other side, I call it the other side, but where we can talk with authorities, with politics, with the local communities. And the main message, but I'll talk about it also a lot, is that human-wildlife conflict will increase before it will diminish. Because the more successful you are in conservation, the more there will be contact between wildlife and people. And there's not a very quick win in population increase of the people. So we're stuck with the fact that there's too little space for us both to exist if we don't arrange it peacefully. This is a picture of a snow leopard in Nepal. It's a nice, I like the image because it exactly shows what the issue is. You got the natural area here and you have a small settlement over there. There's issues with snow leopard eating cattle or goats from local farmers because they're easy prey, of course, for such an agile animal. But it shows how he's looking at or she is looking at the human habitation. So I'm going to take you in what is actually human-wildlife conflict, how does it work, what does it mean, and we have been developing a method to deal with this in a comprehensive way. We've piloted it in 4 places now, and it's not yet completely finished, but there is already a structure which I'm going to take you through so that you can see what it would mean if you have an issue like that in your country. Or in your region or in your village even, and how to approach it, because it is not as easy as you think if you have a human-wildlife conflict. So, okay, human-wildlife conflict, what does it mean? It means, of course, as I said, physically humans moving into wildlife area in habitat of animals and thereby getting into conflict with those animals. But there's also the other way around, animals that come into human-dominated landscape to get their food, get the drink, or whatever is available there. And it leads to two things. So it's negative impact on people and their livelihoods, because it's not always nice. I mean, tourists, yes, it's nice because they can see the animals, but if you live there and you have your farm there, it's not as easy. But it also has a negative impact on wildlife. If wildlife come into human-habitated areas, people will defend themselves, and one of the main results is retaliatory killing. So they kill the tigers, the elephants, or whatever animal comes in, which is of course not good for wildlife. One aspect that is often overlooked is that there's often also very much conflict between people about human-wildlife conflict. You can see that, of course, much about the discussion on wolves, also in the Netherlands, but in other countries also in Eastern Europe, you can see that also. So people tend to forget that it's only, they tend to think it's conflict between animal and human, but it is also conflict between humans themselves, between the authorities who have to do something but are not doing anything, about groups in society who think that they are the ones who decide what happens to wildlife and the other ones want to protect it, like us, for example. And you need, if you want to solve this issue, you can never alone go to one part and try to solve that. You need to look at the entirety of the whole problem. If you do not do that, you will never solve that issue in a structural way, actually. So that will be my main issue. Look at all the aspects, and I'll be repeating that throughout the presentation. So if you get tired of me, sorry. So there's a few things that can happen when you're faced with human-wildlife conflict. One, for people, of course, is that you're killed. There's a lot of people that get killed by human-wildlife conflict. It can be injuries. It can be damage to your property. So your harvest can be destroyed, either trampled or eaten. Your livestock can be eaten and stolen. Your house can be destroyed. Anything that you have can be destroyed by animals. But there's also some more indirect consequences of human-wildlife conflict. One is food insecurity. If in one season you have had elephants take your crop, you don't have anything for the rest of the year, not to sell, to pay for the school of your kids. You don't have food for yourself, so you have to buy it. But at the same time, you know that next year, if you have to plant again, those elephants might come back. And that's a fear that settles in your stomach, which is not good. You don't know what you need to do. You don't know what to invest. You don't know what to do for the next year. And that makes very stressful existence for those people. I've seen it. I've talked to the farmers in Africa, which is really a problem. And it leads to stress and fear, and you don't know what happens then. I mean, if you don't know when they're coming, if they're coming, and what happens to your hard work on your field, or hard work for your cattle, and there's again a lion coming, taking it, or a tiger, or whatever, then you live in stress and fear, and that's not good either. So that's another indirect consequence. And the last time. People don't realize, but if you have the threat of animals getting to your livestock, getting to your fields, and you need to get up in the night to protect your field, that means it takes time that you cannot spend on other things that you normally do. So it has an effect on your regular life. Those effects need also to be taken into account when you're discussing human-wildlife conflict. Not only the damage to a property, which everybody can see, or the damage to wildlife, or the number of cows that have been killed, but also the time that people need to spend to protect their property. Now, for the same accounts, of course, for animals, the biggest threat is that you're being killed, retaliated killing, or injured because of snares being put around fields, for example. But also for them, food insecurity. If there's drought, then they cannot get food, so they'll come to the local people and the local fields to get their food. And if they cannot get it, they will starve to death, and that's a threat also, of course. And for them, the same accounts, stress and fear. And why is it important? Because normally, if you are in a natural area where there's no human inhabitation, you'll see the animals in the natural world, and they'll be relaxed. You can approach them, you can look at them, they walk, they're easy. But the moment that animals come into human inhabited areas, they behave differently. They're stressful, they're not at ease, and that sometimes if they know what people do with them, they'll become aggressive and they are dangerous for people. And that's a different kind of animal that you don't want to see. And it is mostly done by fear and stress. And another effect of human-wildlife conflict is limited movement. What we see a lot in Africa, but also elsewhere, is that you see that the natural migration routes for animals are blocked. So an animal normally will deal with drought, with a lack of food, with the disappearance of peace, that they will move away to another area where they know that there will be either food, rest, or peace, or water. And if those routes are blocked by human developments, roads or settlements or fields, then that limits their migration and their ability to adapt to changing situation, which lead then again to increased human-wildlife conflict. So those are the issues that we have to deal with. A couple of examples of human-wildlife conflict, because it's all over the world, and it has happened, of course, for millennia. People have been living with wildlife forever, so they know how to deal with it, should know how to deal with it. Nowadays, we share 53% of Earth with wildlife. So it's not a little bit, it's almost everywhere. We can see here polar bears in the Arctic area. Because of the climate change, there's less ice, summer ice. Summer ice is needed for polar bears because they hunt seals on that summer ice. And if there's no summer ice, then they cannot hunt the seals, and then they have a lack of food. So they come to the villages and the towns to go into the garbage patches to get their food. That doesn't sound very dangerous, but they will not see a difference between a food parcel in the garbage and a human walking around. They'll actually eat people. So you don't want that. So that means that you have to do a lot of stuff to protect the people. So in the evenings, normally people don't go out unless they have a protected measure with them. So that's one example. Here's an example of a tiger that's harassing a farmer. It's not a very nice sight, and you don't want to have that. We have a house in Nepal where it's actually a living house. You can see the drawings of the kids on the wall still. It's being destroyed by an elephant who was looking for the rice that was stored in the house. That has, of course, huge impact on the local people. And here you see a picture we took last November of a year ago in Zambia, where an elephant had raided a field in Livingston of students who were growing their crops for their own food. And that means that you have to start all over with your work again. Another example, it happens a lot. So in Sri Lanka, 120 people and 400 elephants have been killed in 2019 alone. I mean, those numbers are amazing and not nice and really terrible. So you need to take it seriously. Same thing when we were in Livingston in 2023 for shooting the documentary that you can see, by the way, tonight. I went there with a Dutch photographer who works for National Geographic. I needed images to show what it is to live with wildlife, to tell the story, to convince everybody from authorities to local people to do something about it, what it is like. When we came in Livingston, which is near the Victoria Falls in the south of Zambia in southern Africa, in the time that we were shooting, there were already 3 people that were killed by elephants in a local neighborhood. So it's really, really not a joke. It's a problem. What is the impact of human-wildlife conflict on people and wildlife? Just to give a few numbers, half of the tigers that are killed in Asia are because of human-wildlife conflict, retaliatory killing, so revenge killing. You come to us, I'll kill you. That's 50% of the mortality of tigers. The other 50% would then be natural. We have the Asian elephant. Human-wildlife conflict has caused the population declines in the past few decades in Asia, only by killing because of conflicts. We have the cheetah in Namibia, where 50% of the mortality of cheetah is because of retaliated killing, although we know that they don't kill livestock. So again, there's a feeling there that's not entirely okay. People think that they kill your livestock, but they don't. But out of security, they kill those cheetahs anyways, which is not nice. And for the wolf, I mean, most of the people living in Europe know, in most countries the wolf has been eradicated because of conflict, because they were eating livestock. Even in the Netherlands, where the wolf is officially protected, the wolf are still illegally killed, by the way. So then you know that that's the effect on the population of wildlife. And the effect on people is, again, as I said before, stress, fear, also killings and injuries. So it's a serious issue. Now, if we get to the problem, what is the problem actually and what do we do about it? I'd like to use this image of this iceberg as what we're talking about. When we're talking about human-wildlife conflict, most people know what you talk about, right? It's about the damage to your crops, it's about eating your sheep, it's about the tiger killing persons in Bangladesh. It's about all those things that you see directly, the effects and the impact on the ground. That's what we call the tip of the iceberg. That's what's seen. But there's much more at hand when you're talking about human-wildlife conflict. There's much more happening. And if you want to solve this issue, you cannot just address the tip of the iceberg. You need to address those deep causes also. Now, what do we mean with those deep causes? It's about, for example, the fact that nobody is actually dealing with the issue or the government is not responding to it in a satisfactory manner. The technology is not used to its fullest. And there's not an analysis of the actual feeling, the social feeling and the social perception of wildlife or coexistence with wildlife. People leave, you know, they don't know anymore how they used to live with animals 20, 50, 100 years ago. So if you don't address those issues, then there's going to be a skewed approach to this problem. To give one very, very clear example, well, everybody knows what this is, right? Goose, very good. Does anybody know, is there a specialist who knows which goose? Yeah, so it's a grey-legged goose. It's the most numerous in the Netherlands. It comes in the winter, comes from the north and overwinters here and eats a lot of grass. Well, this animal, most people know, right? The wolf. Okay, so just to give you an impression, the damage by these animals in the Netherlands per year on livestock or property, would that be a bit the same, you think? No, yeah, otherwise I wouldn't put it up, huh? Yeah, that's easy. No, so just to indicate, the damage per year by the wolf in the Netherlands is 350,000 euros. Mostly sheep being eaten. The damage by the goose, by eating grass, which is meant for hay production, is 30 million euro. However, if you look at the Dutch society, where would the most discussions be about? About the goose or the wolf? The wolf. Why? I mean, you're losing 30 million a year, and here's only 300,000. Why is people talking about this? Do they eat people? They don't eat people. Not in the Netherlands. Do they attack people? No. Why do they talk about it? Why is this all the time in the news? Why there's political debates about it? Why there's heightened and very, very, very contentious discussions about the wolf and not about the goose? Those are the discussions that you need to have. If you don't address that issue, you can never ever going to solve that problem of human-wildlife conflict. Difficult. It's not easy. I'm not saying it's easy.
Sorry, may I ask, where did you get the numbers?
From the government. No, yeah. So I have data to provide this information. It's been provided by the government. So you need to talk with your government to provide those information. That's one of the basics when you start solving the issue is get your facts straight. And normally in our country it's rather well organized, as far as I can say. But I've got the data showing it. Yeah, so the question here was, how do you get the data from your government? Because in Serbia, her country, she doesn't have the data, and how can you deal with that? Well, that's one of the core issues that I'm discussing later, how to deal with the issues. If you don't have the information available, then you cannot do anything, so you need to get that information. Knowing that this is a problem and knowing how deep the problem is, One of the issues is it's not only conservation, it's not only about wildlife, it's about social issues. The stress of discussing a wolf, the stress of having a wolf being protected nationally, internationally, and I'm dealing with a wolf that's eating my sheep. I need to have attention. I want to know what's being done with my complaints. That's nothing to do with biology, it's social issues. It's also about economics. If you're saying that the fisheries are involved and I cannot fish because the seals are eating my fish, it's economics. Deal with the economics also. Same here. If you're talking about the goose eating for 30 million grass, but you're not talking about it, but you're talking about the wolf, are you putting the correct attention there? So it's not only biodiversity, it's not only biology, it's social and it's economically. And how do you get that? Well, you need to get attention. First of all, you know that 14 out of the 17 Sustainable Development Goals deal with human-wildlife conflict. And we are very happy that at the last CBD COP in Kunming, they adopted a target 4, which is saying effectively manage human-wildlife conflict or human-wildlife interactions to minimize human-wildlife conflict for coexistence. That means it gets international political attention. That means that you can use it actually. That means that what I've done before, I think starting 20 years ago, dealing with wildlife crime, about poaching, trafficking of ivory and stuff like that. The first thing you want to do is to get international attention, get it on the political agenda internationally. That gives you tools to go nationally with your government and the authorities, talk about it, listen. The international community agrees and acknowledges that this is an issue, so we have to take this on board and put this in our national policies and judiciary. So we're happy with that. The IUCN, the International Union for Conservation of Nature, there's a specialist group that those are people that know everything about the species. They set up guidelines how to deal with human-wildlife conflict. So there's more and more tools coming for this to help. Now, if we move then to coexistence, because that's what you want to have. You know, it happens already, but you want to do it in a proper way. It's not a fixed state. It's not a fixed state. So it's moving according to either climate change, seasonal movements, developments in society, in human society, developments in wildlife society. So it's always moving. But you want to be not on this side where there's high risk for people and wildlife, and low tolerance of humans for wildlife. You want to be as right as possible to where there's low risk and high tolerance. There's one point that I have to make, and that is that you will never ever be free of human-wildlife conflict. It's going to be there in a small way, maybe in a heavy way, but it's never going to be completely gone. That's why we try, and we normally don't use the term peaceful coexistence. Sorry, it's on your flyer, but we don't do it because it's always there. And you need to acknowledge the fact that it is there. And if you don't acknowledge, then you're pushing it away. So you need to be honest about that. What is tolerance then? Tolerance is the ability and willingness to accept the actual or potential costs, tangible and intangible, of sharing a landscape with wildlife. What does that actually mean? It means that you live somewhere, anybody, whether it's a villager, a local or a politician, a businessman, a tourist, anybody, lives in an area together with wildlife, and that you're accepting the costs that come with it. Tangible in the sense, okay, he might eat part of my crop, but you need to have a system to compensate that farmer for those losses. So that he knows, okay, there might be a risk, I've done a lot of work, but if anything happens, there's somebody holding my back, that I know that I can survive. That's tangible cost. Intangible is, for example, the same farmer. I know you're fearsome of having this elephant raiding your crop, but I'm here to help you, and we do all our best to do so. Something like that. Anything to make that fear go away. That's a tangible, intangible cost. And what you actually want, and that's something that I've been trying to push for a little bit in the conservation world, especially in WWF, is that we always aim for the conservation and protection of wildlife, animals and everything. But if you want to do that at a global scale, because not everybody is an animal lover, right? Not anybody is pro-conservation. people want to make money and develop and stuff like that. So what you want to achieve actually is that living with wildlife or having wildlife on your land or in your area or in your region means that must be one of those options that you have. So either you're a farmer with sheep, or you're a farmer agriculture and you're growing vegetables, or you're doing tourism, or you're having wildlife on your area. So it must be one of those choices. It must be part of your set of choices in what you do in life. And it shouldn't be, I'm a farmer, sheep, or an agriculture, or I'm doing tourism, but I've got this wildlife that's bothering me all the time. So it's very negative and it stands outside. It needs to be part of your life. And that means a really different approach of what it is to live with wildlife. And that means you need to do that really properly, actually. And this is a picture taken in Livingston also. There's a local community, 20,000 in a ward that lives there. This is the, how do you call it, a sewage system that's cleaning, and the elephants come every evening and go into town to eat all the mangoes and the vegetable gardens of the people in the 3 months, October, November, December. That's where we were filming, which you can see tonight, by the way. I always have to read this name because it's a difficult organization. Live Euro Large Carnivore Program. Do you know that from Portugal, probably? Large Carnivore Program, you don't? You might. That organization has done a study in Europe on how to live with carnivores. And they asked, what are the solutions to this conflict? Where do they lie? Now, if you look at the responses, it's very clear. It's about setting up stakeholder platforms. Have people talk to each other, express their feelings, express their opinions, hear what is being said. That's one thing. And then what we said there, the need for reliable information. Scientifically, preferably. What we normally do when we work in the countries in Africa or in Asia is that we engage with universities to get the data on wildlife populations, on changes, on all stuff that is needed to support our work. But we have other people doing that. We have scientists doing that. So that when I come with that information to do lobby and advocacy with the government there, then I can say it's not me who's saying that there's a decrease in elephants or that there's a conflict. It's the scientists who say that, and that's objective, independent information, verified in the public domain, so there's no criticism. If I would collect the information myself, we also do that, but that's for our own purpose. But if I do the collection, then I come with the data and I go to the government and I say, listen, your elephants are decreasing. Say, no, your motivation is conservation, so you're biased and I don't believe your data. So the best thing is to get independent data, scientifically sound and proved. You need economic support for prevention. Prevention is different than mitigation. Fences, early warning systems, stuff like that. You need improved compensation systems, payments, insurance to proper loss, rapid response teams that help when there's a conflict. You need improved media coverage. You need to get attention for the problem. You need to get people to acknowledge that there is an issue and that there needs to be something done. You need more government support, emergency response teams, and then in this case specifically for carnivores, there's a livestock guarding dog program which is very successful. Those big dogs, I'll show you a picture. This is kind of the set of things that are needed if you want to properly address it. Here's one of those dogs that will stand up against a wolf. Are there benefits of coexistence? Anybody an idea? What would be a benefit of coexistence between human and wildlife? This?
Saving lives.
Saving life. That's the very important thing. Exactly. Both people and wildlife. Exactly. So if you coexist, if you properly coexist, you prevent decline in wildlife populations because of retaliatory killing. You prevent conflicts of people being harmed or their stuff. Anything else? Preserve the natural balance. Yeah, that's a basic. Yeah. I saw a hand somewhere else. Tourism, exactly. That's another very clear example. If you do it properly, then next to your livestock management, you can also have areas for tourism, which provides income, and especially in Europe, we're trying that stuff. Yeah, so you need the coexistence sometimes to maintain a certain ecosystem. For example, meadows is a system that needs certain management. Either you mow it or you have your cows mow it, and that allows a space for wildlife that is only occurring in those meadows. Yes, yeah, that's clear. So reduce your livestock and your farming to a level that allows you to have also nature on the side. Exactly. No, that's a balance. The cultural identity, that's a very good one also. Yeah, correct. We see it in the Netherlands actually. People used to have those sheep flock and they walk around. It's also something that people love to see and then go to those sheep to see. It's not sometimes economically viable, but it's part of the landscape. Correct, nice one. Yes, the moral and integrate motivation to live together peacefully. And I think that's a good one also. That's, I think, the basis and the foundation for everything. Only then you take the practical steps to do so. Nice one, thank you. You've been thinking about this, very good. If we go then down to what you do about it and what we can do about it, I need to speed up a little bit. What we see, what is not good, is that there's only often piecemeal actions by government or other people. They only try to deal with that what is visible. How do you prevent elephants from going into the field? Well, you just put up a fence. But you put up a fence and you don't maintain it, like this one, and an elephant will immediately know it doesn't work anymore and know how to pass it, and it doesn't work, and then human-wildlife conflict increases again. That doesn't solve the issue. We had the same thing in Livingston, where I said there were people killed every year in the dry season, 3 months. So they put up a fence between the national park and the city. That worked, but it only works for 3 months because then the elephants are coming. The other 6 months, there's no elephants there. So people say, this fence, there's a lot of iron. They cut it and they sell the scrap. And then they get money. And then they complain in October, the elephants are coming again. Yeah, that's because you took away the fence. So putting up a fence is not the solution. It's part of the solution. But if you do that like that, but you don't discuss the underlying problem, then you will never solve the issue in its entirety. And the same thing for the wolf now. I mean, we're very unhappy, of course, with the decision of the European Parliament to say, okay, listen, we're going to downgrade the protection scheme of the wolf because farmers want the wolf to be shot that eats their sheep. Shooting the wolf that eats your sheep doesn't solve the problem. Either you shoot them all, was never going to happen because they're going to come, or you solve the issue. But just shooting the wolf doesn't solve the problem. Quick win, not a solution for the long term. Well, what is then the solution in our eyes? Not that we have the solution or that's the only solution, but the way forward that we think is that you need to approach it in a holistic way. It's a difficult word, but I always say holistic. You need to take everything into account. And the motto for that is from conflict to coexistence. And the approach that we use is based on 4 items. It needs to be holistic, as I said. You have to consider everything that is involved. The farmers with their motivation, the people, the emotional value, the history. How was it 100 years ago? How is it developed? 100 years ago, people were being killed by wolves. So people remember that. It's not happening now, but that's what in their mind. So you need to deal with that also. The drivers, the impacts, and the ways to deal with it. You need to do participatory. All players and actors, you need to involve them in the issue. From the government, from the local people, from the media, from the... Even scientists need to know how do you collect information. It has to be inclusive, so you have to do it together with everybody. So also the farmers that are the most loud, that are shouting and everything. You need to involve everybody who's involved in this issue. And it has to be integrated. So all your actions that you do need to be connected, need to answer those purposes. So it becomes a little bit theoretically new. So don't fade out. But it is important that we do this all together in an integrated way. And therefore we developed this conflict to coexistence approach, which we call then C2C. So I call it C2C from now on. So it starts with 4 outcomes. Actually the basic things that you want to achieve. You want to have the people to be able and willing to live alongside wildlife. That's the first and most important thing. And you want the livelihoods and assets of people to be secured against presence of wildlife. You want the wildlife to thrive alongside people. So you don't want the population to go down. You want them to be either stable or going up. And you want to have the habitat to be sufficiently and sustainably protected for wildlife population. So what we're saying, that you get more area for wildlife also. Those are the 4 things, the 4 outcomes that you want to achieve. Now, to achieve that, we have 6 management elements. And they are targeting those 4 outcomes. And there's a lot of activities that you can put under each management. But one, for example, is understanding interactions. What is the history? What has been in the area? Let's talk about a certain area where there's tigers eating livestock. What has happened? Has it happened in the past also? What's the trend? Where did it come from? What is the population size? You need basic information, what you said, what you're not getting. You need that information to get a proper sight what is happening. So you do that both with the people that are living there, get the information, as well as scientists, as well as data and information that normally governments do have in their system. So you need to have a proper understanding of interactions. Then you need to know what the policy and governance is. What is the local, regional, national policy and laws that are valid for this problem? Are there agreements already? Are there laws in place? Or do I need to tackle the problems at the judiciary level? What is the international conventions that have an effect on how you deal with this problem? And then you have to deal with prevention, fences, awareness raising, boma's. You put your cattle in the night in a fence, so you prevent lions eating them. Electric fences, all kinds of activities that you can do to prevent the conflict from happening. Then the response. If a conflict has happened, it will be good if there's a team that goes there, assesses the situation, takes data, talks with the people, and let them know that we're busy with dealing with your problem. Acknowledging that there is a problem. That's one of the other things that's important. And then mitigation. That means if a conflict has happened, mitigation is different than prevention. If a conflict has happened, what are you doing? Are you compensating with funding? Are you setting up an insurance scheme that people can pay upfront to insure themselves against conflict? There's pilots that are developing here, and we know about good examples that work. Or you are doing awareness raising to the people, explaining what is happening. And the last element is monitoring. So if you set up this system of the policy is okay, we know what the basic is, we've got our preventive measures, we've got our responsive measures, and we've got our mitigation management issues, we've got our monitoring in place, then we need to check, are we in the right track? Are we doing the right thing? Are we really dealing with the issue? There's 4 principles that need to be used in this method if you want to reach a proper goal. And those are the principles that tolerance is maintained and resilience is built. Those are 2 important things because, as I said in the beginning, it will never entirely go away. So you need to have a bit of resilience and tolerance of conflict happening. You need to accept the fact that that's going to happen. You're never going to stop it entirely. So you need to have those principles. You need to be sure that the responsibility is shared between authorities and the local people. Like the maintenance of the fence. The government pays the fence and builds the fence. And if you don't maintain it, then it's your responsibility to maintain it, and otherwise don't complain about issues happening. And holism is fundamental. You need to approach the whole problem entirely. The iceberg, remember? Not only the top. Take the bottom also as a proper thing. Well, there is a way to do that. And this is the process that we are developing as WWF. We call it the C2C methodology, and we've tested now in 4 landscapes. We're rolling it out, we're refining it, it's working, Beginning next year, there will be a guidelines and a report how to exactly do this step by step. I'll take you through it very shortly. The essence is that you normally have those things like context screening is get the information ready, get everybody there, and then you got two stakeholder analysis. Who is involved? Who are attacked by this? Then where are we in addressing this issue? Then you design a strategy together with everybody there on the ground, how to do it and how to deal with it. And then you do a pilot to test it, and if that works, then you roll it out large scale and you monitor. And if you do it properly, then this whole case will drop and this will be the circle that you normally work with. Monitor your situation. Is it going well? Is it going well? If you have to adjust your strategy, test it, do it again, and do that circle. So it's possible. This is a kind of indication how it works. People are separate, right? People, animals, conservation, authorities, businessmen, fishermen, farmers. You start with stakeholder engagement and a C2C assessment. Where are we in this case? Where is everybody in those elements? And in time, you want to get closer, so that you're together there. And that there's a validation, a signing, and an agreement by everybody. We're going to deal with this problem collectively. We've got a proper system in place to check, both on what everybody does and what they can do and what they have to do. And if you have that, then you can roll out and address the issue at a certain level. And if you do that well, as we see here in Tanzania, then you get nice programs. This is a program where they're testing a different way of agriculture, crops that are ripe earlier in the dry season, before the elephants come to the area to raid crops, so that you have your harvest inside before the elephants come. That's one thing. Simple. It looks simple, but you need to test it. Another one is here, same area, Tanzania. You have the cloths that are hanging on the fences with chili. Elephants don't like chili. It stings in their nostrils. Feedback from the people that are checking. There's a response team that is ready to go to any event and to do the things that are needed when there's a conflict. And then we have for you, which I won't read because it's a lot of text. On the report, we have a call to action to local and regional authorities. So you'll get this, don't worry. Anything that's needed to solve the issue holistically at a total scale, you need to have the authorities involved. Therefore, there are specific asks that we have here. I'll give you a link to the report and a short summary that says this, that you can use for your own work. This is a QR code to the summary of the C2C approach. So we have here, this is the report that comes out beginning next year, the user manual, how to set up this C2C approach, how to really solve this problem at the local level from step by step, who to involve, how much it costs, how much time it takes, and really handy tools of how to set this program up. This is the report that we developed in 2020. You can also get that, you'll get the link later. Get the report with data, but also the call for action is in this report. But with this link you can get that. You can email me or my colleague who has developed the C2C method directly with questions. Can you help me? This is the website from the Euro Large Carnivores Initiative with a lot of examples how to deal with it. One thing I would like to say also is we have offices in some of your countries, and those offices are there to help you. So if you need help, I don't know what to do, there's an issue, call WWF and say, can you help us with dealing with the C2C approach? If you don't get an answer or they say we don't know, then come to us again. And we can support our WWF office in helping you, because that's what we're setting up. So from the Netherlands, we are developing this system and we're trying to roll it out in the world in our network and help our offices there to support you guys doing this work. So we are there to assist, and don't hesitate to contact us. And I want to finish with a trailer of that movie that you're all going to look tonight. Watch. This is again in Livingston. You see the town in the back. This is a garbage dump. The elephants come there to eat the nshima. It's the fufu. How do you call it? I don't know what the other name is. It's a nice mice pup. But they eat also a lot of plastic, and it's really bad. It's about management. It's a very simple issue. Solve your garbage, and the elephants won't come. but people will first talk about the elephants instead of the garbage. Well, it's a delicate balance always. It's not that the food that is with the humans is the only food for elephants, for example, or for lions. If a lion catches a cow doesn't move, like a sheep doesn't do with a wolf. So if I'm a wolf or a lion and I can choose between a cow and a gazelle who runs 100,000 kilometers an hour, I choose the cow. It's more and it's easy. If I'm a wolf and I take a sheep and the next sheep stands there and looks at it and doesn't run, I'll take that sheep. I'm not going to take the doe or the deer that is running and is difficult to catch. So it's not about that there's no food for those animals. Same with the elephant. The elephant needs to reach out and eat rather not as wealthy food as the one on the feet. So you need to stop them from coming and take away the verleiding, the temptation to eat good food. So you need, again, you don't need to only remove the garbage dump, but you need to be able to make sure that the elephant can move to other areas where there's food. So stop the blockage. And that's why I'm saying you need to do everything. If you only do this, it doesn't work. Broad. The first thing that I always say is there's never too many animals. There's never overpopulation. There's just too little space. I mean, if you confine all the elephants in one area, and whether it's elephants or tigers or any animal, if you confine them to one space, then there will be conflict, and then they will be going out to get their food because there's not enough food in the national park, for example. So don't say that there's too many animals, there's too little space. And if you repeat it and keep talking about it, and you talk about the solutions to get more space with the government, and you need to come with examples. If you come with examples and you help them lead by the hand and say, listen, you need to think longer term than only short term, shoot animals, because that's the solution, but it's very short term, it's not what we like. But take them by the hand and offer the solutions for the long term. So you need to connect parks to make sure that the overpopulated area there goes to the other area. It requires long-term management, but you need to show examples. And the data is just what we're doing. So by engaging with the government and paying for it and doing it with our scientists, we've got the proper data actually. So we can discuss about that later. We can talk a whole day about the wolves in the Netherlands. You have a workshop on that, right? Today? On the wolves? No? Oh, then I can explain a little bit. It's a bit complicated. So wolves settle with a group, and then they'll hunt mostly in an area that is where there's no people. So they'll hunt wildlife. So the settled wolves, the packs, they hunt for 97% wildlife, which is not a problem. The problems are the wolves that leave the pack when they're getting old and they're looking for new areas. They go out of nature areas and they roam. And when they roam, they'll eat what is most easy, which is mostly sheep. And people, people living around the wolf pack know that they are there, so there's risk. So they can properly prepare. They get funding to prepare and protect their stock. So they need to invest themselves, and they get a little bit of subsidy, and they have to do that. They do that. They know that because they live next to wolves. The farmers that live far away, they never see wolves. Why would they do it? And they get attacked by a wolf that is suddenly there, and then they start screaming. You get compensation, but you need to have awareness raising, so knowing what is possible if you get attacked by wolves and what possibilities are there to actually protect yourself. So it's about communications, it's about actual measures that you can do, and it's about keep talking to everybody what the possibilities and risks are of living with wolves. We do in the Netherlands, we work very closely with political parties. We got a lobbyist that we share with different conservation organizations. And we share our points with political parties. So when we know that the policy is being developed by the sitting government, then we give our opinion on what we think needs to be done in the country. We give it, we share it with the parties and the sitting cabinet, and then we go there and explain it and say, okay, how can we help you? Are you missing information? Are you missing capacity? We can provide that. What I noticed in the 20 years that I've been working in conservation is it works better to be constructive and thinking and sitting at a table with people that are not doing what you want them to do than being activistic. That's my personal opinion. You also need activists. If you cannot reach your goals by sitting and talking and trying to change them with good examples, then you call in the activists. That's what we do. I just want to show you the trailer of the film that we shot in Southern Africa.
They just push it over. It's nothing for the elephant.
You explain a little bit what happened here.
It's because of the elephants. Every day they do harm.
So close to your house.
It's frightening. It's not safe.
We are scared of elephants.
We should live with these animals.
There's elephants coming.
There are people that are losing lives that are caused by elephants.
And we intruded in their corridor. Yes.
We want to find ways to live in harmony with the elephant.
I'm surprised that the elephant was killed.
Some of the elephants, they become so vicious.